I am, just say it's recording.
Sorry about that.
Don't worry. I am the Career Technical Education Advisor, also to say coach. So pretty much my job is to help students complete their degree.
Thank you, Jalissa, for being here. All right, next is Brianna.
Hi, my name is Brianna. I work at SUNY Broome. I'm a career coach here at SUNY Broome. So I help students with anything career readiness related.
Thank you. Welcome, Brianna. Next is Mary Beth.
Hi, I'm Mary Beth Phillips. I work at Finger Lakes Community College, and I am the newly appointed Director of Grants Development. So this will be my first Perkins application. So this should be very helpful.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mary Beth. Next is Maya. Maya? Oh, you're muted, Maya.
Sorry, for some reason my computer is just like not clicking it with me. My name is Maya. I'm from SUNY Broome Community College, and I'm the Director of Admissions for our department.
Thank you for being here, Maya. Margaret.
Hi, so my name is Margaret Sullivan. I work at SUNY Broome Community College under my ASSOSTAC as the CTE enrollment coach for Perkins. So I help students with the essential enrollment process and onboarding.
Thank you for being here, Margaret. Dr. Glenda Gross. Dr. Glenda.
Hi, everyone. My name is Glenda Gross. I am currently the Director of Adult College Programs at Onondaga Community College. So right now I'm trying to figure out ways to better support our adult learners in our community and sort of what kinds of programs we need to develop to meet their needs. So thanks.
Thank you for being here, Dr. Gross. Lori Brewer. Lori, you're next.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Lori Brewer. I'm the CTE academic coach at SUNY Broome, and I deal with health studies students and STEM students.
Awesome. Thank you, Lori. Susan, you're next.
Hello, everyone. I'm Susan Stracquadanio. I'm also a CTE academic coach at SUNY Broome, and I work with students in the Business and Professional Studies division and some liberal arts students as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Susan. Danielle.
Hello, I'm Danielle Tierno from SUNY Broome. I'm the Senior Staff Assistant for our Sponsored Programs Office.
Thank you for being here, Danielle. Akisha?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Akisha Clemens, and I am a Career and Employment Advisor with the SUNY Manhattan Educational Opportunity Center. I work specifically with our allied health student learners and assist them with job placement once they have completed their certifications.
Awesome. Thank you, Keisha. And Kim. Kim Mead.
Hello.
Hi. Can you introduce yourself? Just tell us who you are, your institution, and your role in this at the institute.
Sure. I am a new Perkins liaison from NYSID at the post-secondary level. Okay. Happy to meet all of you. Sorry, I'm a little late coming in here, getting the technology hooked up, but happy to be here.
We're so thrilled you are here. Thank you so much. All right. So welcome, everyone. I am Dina Refke. I am the director of the Center for Women in Government and Civil Society. We're part of the University at Albany. And the University at Albany is the State University of New York, and part of the one of the 64 campuses. And we are also the administrator of the non-traditional employment and training program. We've been doing that, had the pleasure of and the privilege of doing this program for a while, working with all of you, Perkins grantees, to assist you in your capacity as administrators and as educators, trying to retain and recruit and retain students who are pursuing gender non-traditional employment and gender non-traditional fields of study. And these fields of study are defined as fields where there is less than 25% of either gender. So on the NET program website, you'll have the most up-to-date list of the non-traditional gender occupations and fields of study. It may be helpful to you. And also there are a lot of other resources that you may find helpful. We're also here to provide you with free technical assistance, one-on-one group technical assistance, help you build your action plan, help you do climate surveys, all free of charge. And we hope that you will really leverage our services to you. This is an issue that we care most about, because at the Center for Women in Government and Civil Society, as our name suggests, we really are pursuing an agenda of gender justice and breaking down these dichotomies and binaries of what men can do and what women can do. And we see this as really part of our vision and part of our agenda to create an equitable career field, an equitable workplace where women can access high-paying STEM occupations, and men would not be, hindered by cultural biases and of pursuing what they deem as appropriate professions for them, like early childhood education or nursing. And once we break these dichotomies, we're able to create a more equitable, more fair climate, a workforce climate, where we are not really stereotyping one or either gender. So you all see my screen. Some housekeeping before we start. You have the chat button. Please use it to write any comments that you have as we go through the presentation part of this webinar. Interrupt me, please. If you would like to speak, unmute yourself and speak. When I'm playing the slides, I cannot see your hands, so do not use the reaction or the raise hands function, because I cannot see most of you when the slides are on. So please feel free to unmute and interrupt yourself and interject your comments, your feedback, your questions. And hopefully, after the presentation part of this webinar, we'll engage in a fruitful discussion about what we do at our institutions, because that's what we really learn most by sharing best practices and what worked and what didn't. We're all really challenged by the enormous task of creating equitable CTE programs. Because as you will see when we start the presentation, there are barriers that are historical and are cultural, that we are up against. And it helps to delve into the research literature and the practice literature and to get to know what worked and what didn't and share with each other. So I will start without any further ado. So today we're discussing again, creating equitable CTE programs. These are spaces and particularly classrooms and campus rooms where we want everybody to succeed, every student to succeed, complete their program and become productive members of the labor force. We want also them to be part of the workforce that are not facing any inequities as compared to their mainstream counterparts. My remarks are really focused more on the special population that are defined by Perkins 5 as people from different population groups that are facing specific and unique barriers. And these barriers serve as adverse determinants of educational achievement. These, of course, include students pursuing gender non-traditional fields of study, where there is less than 25% of either gender, It includes students who do not have stable homes, or are without homes, and students who come from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, women who are single mothers or pregnant, youth who are disconnected from the workforce, veterans and children of members of the armed forces, and people with disabilities, as well as English learners, so foreign-born who are still learning the English language. So these are what is called the special population by Perkins 5. So here is an outline of the presentation portion of our webinar. We will talk first about the definition of equity. How do we all define equity? And what exactly do we mean by equity? How do we operationalize this term? And what are the barriers to equity? Then we will examine what we can do to advance equity in our institutions. And what we're proposing in this webinar is to use really the self-determination theory, which will serve as our theoretical foundation for our discussion. It is a theory that has been tested many, many, many times empirically in education and in health and in other fields. And we will talk more about concrete strategies that you could do at your institutions as educators, as administrators, to make CTE spaces more equitable and more conducive to success of CTE students. Strategies that are really informed by the self-determination theory. So after this portion of our webinar, we will open again the discussion, as we mentioned, on implementation of these strategies. What do you feel like would be a barrier to implement these strategies? How can we make them institutionalized and take roots in our institutions? We will hopefully share practices that we may not have mentioned here in this webinar. All right, so how do you define equity? Let me turn to you and see how you yourself define equity. Please unmute yourself and jump in.
I don't mind going first. I would say equity is equal opportunity for everyone, regardless of your age, sex, gender, everyone having an equal amount of resources to the same thing. Oh, actually, no, I take that back. I think that's equality. I think equity is when certain people might not have as many resources, so providing them additional resources so they are at the same level as everyone else. That's what I think equity is.
Brianna, thank you. That's wonderful. Anybody else? How do you define equity? We're a small group, so please unmute yourself and jump in.
I'll jump in. This is Glenda. I agree with Brianna, I think, who just spoke. I would also say that equity is about removing barriers to access for marginalized populations, and then again is providing support to help certain groups achieve their goals.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Gross. Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Shelly. I didn't introduce myself, sorry.
Please do before you.
No problem. I'm the Perkins Technology Assistant. I work with students with disabilities and with English second language students here at SUNY Broome Community College. I think it's being fair and impartial.
Okay, awesome. Fair and impartial. Okay, anybody else? These are all wonderful, wonderful definitions that you all used. And here's a definition by Cook, Harvey, and all, which tells us that equity is about access, again, something that you have said, and it's access to meaningful learnings, teaching deeper learning skills, and empowering students to learn independently. So this is our goal as educators, to make sure that every student becomes an independent learner. When I go back to what Brianna said and what I believe Dr. Gross said, it's about really also providing these extra resources, equalizing, not providing equal resources, but equalizing the playing field so it becomes level. So everybody has the same access and the same access to the same opportunities, but the same chance to succeed in the workplace and attain comparable outcomes. So one thing that we emphasize is really that the comparable outcomes to their counterparts who are not designated as special populations. So what are barriers to achieving equity? You can again jump in.
I think one barrier that sometimes comes up is even just learning about what's available, just the access to the information.
Absolutely, access to information. And you would think, Keisha, this is a root cause of the problem, or what is the root cause of the problem?
Yes, I actually agree with what you just said. Yeah. I was just going to say, when there's like systems or certain, I guess, yes, like systems in place that makes it harder to get access to things that can help, just even information, like she just said, information, resources, those kinds of things. Yes.
Absolutely, Keisha, this is excellent, because this is a symptom of a much larger problem, right? It's more systemic. And the root cause of it is really systemic and disadvantages some population or some members of particular population that do not have access to the information. So any other barriers? Thank you, Keisha. Any other barriers you can think of? Structural, historical, systemic, interpersonal, political, social, economic.
I would also say, and apologize if someone already mentioned this, but a lot of times education was created for white men and not considering other factors of other sexes or races. So sometimes the way the structure is laid out is not considering other groups.
Yep, absolutely, Brianna. So we have a history that we are really in a legacy that we are working against, really, or working with, trying to mitigate the history and legacy of an unequal educational system that really created all these symptoms that we're talking about. People cannot have the same level of opportunities, the same level of educational quality or quantity, or outcomes. So there are also systemic barriers, and that has to do with really the deficit-based perspectives that we as a society treat members of special population with, the lens that we look at special population with, and how a symptom of that problem is really our lowering of the expectations for this population, which can be detrimental really to their achievement and success. There are also interpersonal barriers. And so we, as a society, we have an educational system that did not provide the same quantity and the same quality of education to everyone. And students come to us with varying degrees of academic preparedness, different levels of knowledge base, different levels of skills. In some quarters, there's a level of pathologizing of special population, deficit-based lens that lead to really harmful stereotypes and lowering of expectation of what the members of these populations can accomplish, which in turn leads to lowering of the quality and the quantity of the educational services that we provide. And frankly, discrimination, because we build our decisions on preconceived assumptions of who they are and what they can and cannot do. They face difficult conditions, but they are people who are not defined by their conditions. So we have a highly stratified society by class, gender, race, ethnicity, ability, etc., nativity, and members of social identities that are not part of the mainstream face microaggressions that are extremely harmful. They tend to be brushed aside and not dealt with, but the accumulation of these microaggressions over the years really constitutes traumas, what come to be known as micro traumas. But if you have years of being subjected to microaggressions, it really can be detrimental to your ability to feel safe, to feel a sense of belonging, to feel that you're part of an institution. And it really lends itself to feelings of isolation, alienation, it's very, very detrimental. So the slide that you see here is a CTE equity framework that has been adapted from Kim et al. In 2021. And it's an equity framework that suggests that to achieve equitable education for everyone, an institution must equalize educational investments. Equalize, and again, I'll go back to Brianna's definition of it's not about equality, but it's about equalizing so that everyone is on the level playing field, which means that you may not be investing the same resources, but giving these disadvantaged population an extra leg up so that they are able to come to a level playing field. And so in the first bucket of educational investments, the green bucket that you see on the screen, there are two elements. We want educational CTE educational system that is compliant with learning standards, with the core standards, and that makes appropriate and adequate investments of resources. Given the barriers we talked about previously, investments of resources, again, must strive to equalize and uplift and must level the playing field. If you aim to provide student-centered education, that means you tailor and customize your support services, your educational services, and make sure you meet students where they are. There's no one size fits all. We have come to realize that this does not work. It really does lead to the same disparities in outcome if we do not customize and meet every student where they are. So you help students address the social determinants that are interfering with their ability to succeed. And so these social determinants in the health field, for example, it's been acknowledged widely that you cannot really expect a person to achieve health outcomes similar to the mainstream population if you do not address the non-health needs that this population face, the social determinants that lead to bad health outcomes. Same here. Bad educational or poor educational outcomes are not going to turn around if we don't pay attention to those social determinants that adversely affect the educational attainment. So the next bucket that you see, the yellow bucket, is about equalizing treatment. And in that bucket, there's quality and quantity of education, as well as policies, procedures, practices that really must equalize rather than penalize based on social identity. And finally, equivalent educational outcomes are really the benchmarks that help us determine if we are successful in providing educational equity or not. These are the indicators. So when you have disparities between educational outcomes, credential and degree attainment, and labor force outcomes between members of special populations and their counterparts, their mainstream counterparts, that means that we will have to do more work to achieve that ideal of equity. The ideal of equity happens or occurs when we do not have disparities between mainstream population and special population. So, so there has been research that is recent in 2021 that was done on CTE programs, and it was found that really the conception of equity in the CTE field often is one-dimensional, which means that there's a focus on one dimension only. So we cannot really, for example, conflate access with quality or completion with equitable outcomes. So if we have certain members of the population who are enrolled in a program, we consider that equity. We consider that, you know, that we've achieved. Obviously, you have some success in bringing them to the institution, in having them being enrolled. However, you cannot, you have to also measure quality, and you have to measure outcomes and make sure that there are no disparities in outcomes between this population and their mainstream counterparts. So if you still have disparities in attainment and labor force outcomes, then we still have an inequitable system, and we need to do better. We need to reform that system so that it works for everyone. And you cannot have efficacy or effectiveness without equity, as Kim and all posits. So let's look at what any questions so far? I'll stop here and ask. All right, okay. We'll have a chance at the end also to engage more deeply on each of these areas. But so what we're trying to do here, what we're proposing is a closer look at how we intervene in the investments we make in our students, in how we can influence students' outcomes through culturally responsive practices and pedagogy that has the power to fuel the psychological energies of students and safeguard against quitting, against them dropping out and leaving the institution, against non-completion. So how do we do that? We are suggesting here the self-determination theory as a theory that really provides guidance into what we can do. It's evidence-based practices on what we can do as an institution to intervene. So self-determination theory states that every human being has basic psychological need for autonomy, sense of competence, and relatedness in order to have a sense of well-being. When those needs are met, individuals tend to perform at a higher level of performance and have much better academic and professional outcomes. So self-determination theory that has been developed by Deci and Ryan in 2000 posits that, again, there are those three dimensions or three areas that everybody must fulfill in themselves in order to achieve a healthy existence, a healthy well-being. So autonomy means the ability to be in control of one's decisions and actions. Sense of competence, and I always say sense of competence, it's the perception of competence. Because sometimes we are very competent, but our self-confidence is very low and we don't see or perceive ourselves as competent. So the perception is always reality in our mind. And the sense of competence or the perception of competence is really what matters here in that self-determination space. So self-competence means or is defined as the feeling of self-efficacy, a sense that one has what it takes to succeed, and a sense of relatedness, which means the ability to connect with people, connect to people, and have a sense of that one authentically belongs, have a sense of belonging. When these needs, basic needs, are satisfied, one is able to have a sense of well-being and perform at a higher level. In addition, when these needs are satisfied, it gives us what they call psychological energy, an energy boost that leads to motivation and long-term maintenance of healthy behaviors. So they argue that human beings have the capacity to achieve optimal functioning and positive development when they have self-determination, which is again, a sense of autonomy, a sense of competence, and a sense of relatedness. Any questions so far? All right, so let's delve deep into each of those dimensions of self-determination and think about what strategies can we use at our institutions' spaces to promote autonomy, students' autonomy, sense of competence, and relatedness. So autonomy is the feeling, again, that one is in control of one's choices and is able to pursue one's self-defined goals and activities that are consistent with one's values. So this leads to, again, satisfaction, healthy well-being. So in turn, if you think about a controlling and rigid environment that forces us to conform to certain values, certain behaviors, and certain outcomes, can lead to a loss of that sense of autonomy. And when that happens, we tend to feel that we're not living our authentic self or our authentic lives, and it's being subjected and subjugated and smothered. And it's much more likely when we lose that sense of autonomy that we lose that a piece of that self-determination equation. All right, so a sense of competence, perception again of competence is very critical. And as we said, perception is reality in our minds. When I feel I can succeed, I'm more likely to put the effort and work harder to persist in doing the tasks. But if I don't feel that I can get to the finish line and I have doubts about my ability and my capacity to succeed, I'm more likely to cave in when I face real or perceived challenges. Self-efficacy is really a function of perception of competence. And it is what gives us that internal energy to keep going and to move forward and not to quit and to persevere, because we know that we have no doubt that our efforts will yield fruits and we will get to where we want to go, despite all of the challenges and the obstacles. So the third dimension of self-determination is relatedness. And relationships is really, they are the foundation of good teaching and good administration of programs, and a sign of a productive and enabling educational institution. Students, as everyone else, need to feel a sense of belonging and a sense of connectedness with those around them. They need to feel affirmed and validated when those around them provide them with a sense that they do not care or they are invisible to them, as often happen in many institutions. They tend to feel isolated again and alienated from the institution and from the learning process. They lose a sense of that relatedness and connection. Worse, individuals around them may make them feel that they do not belong through subtle, again, what we talked about, microaggressions, subtle and not so subtle verbal and nonverbal messages that are experienced as really traumas, micro traumas, yet almost always go unchecked and unaddressed, because we all have, good intentions, but oftentimes we don't even know how to intervene when that happens. So the impact is really far-reaching. Not only is there a threat of quitting and dropping out of the program, but there's also a threat to building and internalizing that professional identity. We're trying to socialize students to become the engineers, computer specialists, the nurse, the early child care worker, the construction worker, the mechanic. We're trying to socialize them into these professions. And so when something like that happens, and in that space, they do not feel a sense of belonging, they tend to really not be able to build and internalize that professional identity, which becomes really, really scary and an enormous responsibility in how we interact with students and how we are enabling or hindering that internalization and development of their professional identity. So we already talked about that. Professional, that is the result of research, that there is a very strong connection link between the 3 dimensions of self-determination, autonomy, relatedness, and sense of competence, to the building of professional identity and the development of professional identity. So that's how really self-determination theory becomes really, really critical to what we do. So we ask, how then can we foster students' autonomous sense of autonomy, sense of autonomy in a CTE education? Does anybody have ideas about that? How do you foster students' autonomy in a CTE educational space, whether in the classroom or outside of the classroom? How do we make sure that this component of self-determination theory is being cultivated by in our interaction with students, in how we set up programs, or how we manage classrooms? Okay, so, go
sorry.
ahead. Please. No, go ahead.
I was just popping in because no one was talking. I was going to say one of the things.
Can you say who you are?
Because sorry. Yes, this is Kim Mead. One of the initial things is in the advertising and in the staffing and just all around making sure that it's all representative. So that's whoever the student is, that they see themselves reflected back in every possible position or program.
Absolutely, Kim. That's excellent. Yes, of course. To see that they belong, that they are part, they too can be the people they see in the brochure. That it's not an impossible journey. You can't be what you can't see. We always say you can't be what you can't see, and it's very important that it is representative of the population we're trying to recruit. So it starts with recruitment for sure. Anybody else wants to jump in? Thank you, Kim.
This is Lori from SUNY Broome. One of the things you mentioned was sometimes they don't feel like they're in the right group, even at the academic level, or other people, kind of put them down because they're not performing at the same level. So I think a huge part of that would be really right in the beginning, kind of the advising piece to make sure that these students are put into the right classes right off the bat so that they are on the same level, or that they can, achieve that higher level to these more specific careers that they're looking at.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Lori. It's definitely, it starts with advising. You don't want a student to be in a classroom where they're constantly struggling to catch up. That is destructive to their sense of autonomy, their sense of competence, their sense of relatedness. It's destructive to their self-determination. And that for sure is a student that will not is at a danger of dropping out. So here are some strategies that are cited in the literature. Again, I'm not taking any credit for that, but I've tried that in my classroom. And I can tell you that each one of those really work extremely well. So learning is really a partnership between teachers, between peers, and the student. And so we work together in a participatory manner, and it's important for students themselves to also define the learning goals for themselves. Yes, we have boundaries, but they need to feel in control of this process. We have benchmarks, we have goals, learning goals that we would like to achieve and would like every student to achieve. But we have to remember that a student is not a vessel for information, and that students really are individuals, they're human beings. They have personalities, different interests, different learning styles. And so they need to feel the power to shape their learning journey. And they need to feel in control of this learning experience. This will really spark their motivation to learn, and will teach them that really learning is an intrinsic value in itself. It is not something that society dictates on them. So I always start in my classroom with having everybody define what they want to get out of this class. And I try to tailor my curriculum to, while keeping and being faithful to the benchmarks that I'm trying to achieve. I also, at the same time, allow for these goals to be voiced and come out, and allow for certain flexibility and to refine the curriculum to address these goals. So again, one of the strategies is really the democratization of the classroom. And we've moved away from, again, thankfully, from that traditional and ineffective model of the sage, of the teacher being the sage on the stage, rather than the guide on the side. And so the teacher really needs to be a facilitator of the learning. Yes, they do have power, and it's not genuine to say, or disingenuous to say they don't have the power, or that there isn't any power dynamics in the classroom. But again, use that power to empower the student. And so this teacher also needs to model that she or he is also learning, and on a learner continuum. They are the teacher learn on a teacher-learner continuum. And that really conveys the sense that everybody needs to be a lifelong learner and learning with the students, but they're also teaching the students to be lifelong independent learners, and teach them the skills of self-management, self-awareness, empathy with themselves and others, and compassion with themselves and with others. Also, one strategy that is incredibly important is to fostering economy is to value what each student brings to the table. Students come from different cultures, from different environments and backgrounds, and they come with a lot of knowledge. And when we demonstrate that we are valuing the knowledge that the student brings to the table by welcoming their opinions, their questions, validating and affirming those, where that goes a long way of giving the student that sense of control, that sense of that they have something valuable to contribute to the process of learning. And so we really need to, I can't emphasize enough that we need to have very, very high expectations of every student and treat them as capable of high level of thinking and high quality thinking and doing. Understanding, again, our position in the classroom and using that power to lift the voices of special population, members of special populations, will go a long way to really ensure that they are not, they are in control of their learning journey. So moving on to a sense of competence. What do you do at your institution to cultivate that sense of competence? What can you do to cultivate a sense of competence in CTE students? Any ideas? And it doesn't have to be just in the classroom. There really, administrators and coaches have incredible power to cultivate that sense of competence, sense of confidence that they can succeed. So here are some strategies, again, from the literature. Cultivating a sense of competence in the student is not difficult at all. It is critical, however, to ensuring that they have that energy reserve to meet the expectations that they have of themselves and the expectations that those around them have of them. So in this bucket of competence, strategies including assessing where your students are in terms of knowledge and skills, and differentiating materials in the classroom so that they can feel that they are capable of understanding. I think, Lori, it was you who said advising. I'm sorry if it wasn't Lori. I have to go back to my notes here. You said through advising, we put the students, we place them in the correct level, in the appropriate level, so they're not struggling. But again, another strategy is to really differentiate the material so that they feel that they are capable of understanding the materials and doing the activities rather than struggling to catch up, which is demoralizing and debilitating. Again, the literature talks about using a backward design, which is another strategy. Once you have understood the varying knowledge and levels of skills that your students have, you can start with the end goals. And you look at the end goals that you want out of this to impart on your students and learning goals, and move backwards. Again, we understand there are benchmarks and there are boundaries of curriculum, but every instructor has the flexibility to shape the syllabus, and as long as you at the end meet those end goals. So you want to start with those end goals and really move backward to set the curriculum and in the way that you are ensuring that the material addresses everybody's needs and everybody's interests. We talked about this in other webinars a lot, growth mindset and a fixed mindset. Does anybody remember what those mean?
I have one on this one.
Okay.
It's something I, as a parent, and I'm sure many parents out there struggle with this. When you give a compliment and say, "Oh, you're so smart," that's a fixed mindset. Rather, you worked so hard, or you put so much effort in there. That's great. That's just one example in compliments. That's my biggest struggle, the compliments.
Excellent example. And I'm sorry, I can't see who you are.
Oh, I'm sorry, that was Kim.
Hi, Kim. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And being a parent, yes, I made this mistake many, many times. And before I really understood that you gotta You gotta have a growth mindset to succeed in this world. And yes, it is really the belief that no one is born with innate intelligence, but intelligence is earned and learned. It's a learned behavior that you get through hard work and perseverance. And although we are sure to succeed if we work hard, we really think of intelligence as something that you work hard on building. And a fixed mindset is, on the other hand, is really sees the failure as attributed to something you're born with, innate capacity, believing that you don't have it. And I don't have the capacity to succeed, and I don't have the capability to do it. If I failed, it is a reflection of my innate ability. So teachers and administrators have enormous power to detect that mindset and correct it. They can always use the power of yet. So you don't know the material yet. That's incredibly powerful word. You do not understand the material yet, but everyone has the capacity to get it if they tried hard enough. So it goes without saying that teachers have an enormous power, as we've been saying, in cultivating that sense of competence through positive, constructive assessment and feedback. If you provide assessments that are overly judgmental, it goes without saying, or punitive, it goes without saying that you are deflating students' sense of competence. Also, when you build a curriculum that uses students' experiences, they feel they have something to contribute to the material and feel connected to it. So that's why we talk a lot about including multicultural elements of in the curriculum, so that students see themselves and see their experiences in the curriculum and feel that they have knowledge of this, firsthand knowledge of these experiences. That's critical. Again, setting high expectations for everyone, and you communicate that you expect them to succeed. There's no question about it. Again, that's incredibly important. Building relationships with your CTE student. Tell us what you do at your institution to operationalize this. What strategies do you do?
Both from the career, yes. Hi, is that Keisha? So,
Keisha, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, you pronounced it fine. That's not a problem. I was just reintroducing myself. So for the career standpoint, connectedness, we usually, I'm not connectedness, relatedness. We usually foster a sense of camaraderie amongst the students. And I like to have networking events so that it feels less competitive and more supportive as far as job seekers are concerned. So that's one way that you could foster relatedness with students.
Absolutely, Keisha, that is incredibly important. You know, creating that community that we're talking about, and that is that literature is saturated with. So consistently building relationships with the student is critical for all the reasons we mentioned previously. And we never do it enough because we're so busy as educators, as administrators. It's never enough. And these are the strategies that came up in the literature, and my knowledge of other institutions and what they do. It includes checking in with students, knowing students as unique individuals and as learners, as whole beings, taking an interest in their lives and experiences, and checking in with them regularly and intentionally is very, very important. And you really want to convey the sense that you care about them and you support them along the journey. Some institutions that I know of have taken this to a very different level, where faculty and administrators initiate what is called the positivity postcards. So they actually have those postcards that have inspirational quotations or statements on it, and they add handwritten encouragement notes to the students on the cards, where they essentially praise their performance, praise their contributions to class discussions, or praise their resilience and perseverance. They do it in a timely and frequent manner, and these have enormous impact on the students. Some of the institutions that implemented this practice have witnessed a huge impact in the students and how it changed their behaviors and their attitudes. They feel almost obligated to continue a high level of performance to meet the expectations of the administrators or the educators. So these are intentional acts of kindness, really, that faculty and administrators do to build relationships with students, inspire a sense of connectedness and a sense of competence as well. So you're really targeting two birds with one stone there, as much as I hate that example. So another foundation strategy, and one that Lakeisha had touched on, is building community, building a learning community. You want to create that connection, not just with the teacher and the faculty and the administrator, but connection between peers and peer-to-peer relationships. And so that becomes really important to create that community among peers. It's easily done in the classroom, obviously outside the classroom, certainly like Lakeisha had mentioned, creating those networking events, creating fun events that people can come together, build those connections, shatter stereotypes, and really building authentic relationships among the students. But in the classroom also, there are ways of building these learning communities that have been really highlighted in all the research literature, and as a powerful vehicle for creating not just autonomy and sense of competence, but relatedness, all three dimensions of self-determination. So one of the things you can do in the classroom is classroom dialogues. Classroom dialogues in a traditional paradigm of teaching flows from the teacher to the student and back to the teacher, where the teacher dominates the discussion and initiates, the discourse and dictates how the discourse will go. However, in enabling climate, in an equitable classroom climate, we want the discussion to be horizontal and not vertical, and to create a balance between teacher and student discussion, but also horizontal discussion from student to student as well. Teachers do not dominate discussions in these spaces, but create group discourses, small group discussions, where students participate as viable members of the community. They contribute thoughts and feedback. I can tell you at the course that I'm teaching this semester, I have them reflect on each of the classes and write a paragraph or two in an online space telling me what they've learned and how they experienced class. And over again, all students 100% say that they learn most through these group discussions from their peers. And it is an all-time really very, very popular mode of learning, because again, it just boosts the energy. You also need to again, of course, meet the learning goals and structure activities and exercises that help you get to these learning goals and debrief after every discussion or every dialogue. However, they're really, really incredibly important vehicles for creating learning communities. Community ground rules, it's another way of having people feel in control. So you want the beginning of the school year or the beginning of the semester or the beginning of class, to have the students themselves set the ground rules for how they want the space to look like or feel like. That create trust, create a sense of safety. And really, when conflicts arise, you want to be able to diffuse it positively and not punitively. You want to have kindness, compassion, and empathy to dominate how you address conflicts within the classroom or within the campus climate. And again, you're modeling a sense of how conflicts should be diffused and turning them into perhaps learning moments for the students. Last thing is humor and fun, to make students feel comfortable and understand that learning can be fun, really. It doesn't have to be burdensome, and people can actually relax and feel safe and trust other members of the community and establish that sense of connectedness among students to avoid this horrible sense of invisibility that students oftentimes feel, and to convey a sense that the community's collective mission is to learn, grow, and appreciate each other. That's incredibly important, setting those ground rules at the beginning. It can go a long way. So these are, again, the three components of building a self-determined identity. They are really mutually reinforcing. They reinforce, enable, and debilitate each other. So a positive change in one can lead to positive change in another, and all three of them, and vice versa. So while it's critical to try to work in all three dimensions and really infuse that very, very transformative psychological energy in the student, even working on any level will likely affect the other two. So you start somewhere and it will likely affect the other two. So finally, again, we as human beings, we need to cultivate cultural humility. We cannot have a webinar that talks about equity without really talking about working on ourselves as educators, as administrators, if we wish to advance equity. This is critical. We are all a product of a culture that cultivated a certain worldview in our mind. We are the human condition, the culture of human beings. There isn't a place in the world where there isn't that level of stratification of individuals based on their different social identities. And it's really disingenuous if we believe that we have not been affected by it. All of us have been affected by it. And we all have stereotypes, we all have biases that are unconscious and really rooted in our psyche. If we lived in any of the human race, we have absorbed these stereotypes and biases against individuals who are different from us. And we need to reprogram, we need to relearn or unlearn what we learned, and unlearn what has been harmful against members of any different populations, special populations, or other members who are different from us. And it's critical to consistently live this, what the literature talk about as an examined life. So to interrogate our thought process and our decisions that we make. It is something you will have to commit to doing as long as one is breathing, because it's never really a destination, but it is a journey. And so the critical thinking process that we try to impart on students and teach it to them, we must apply it every day to our thinking and our spoken and be really conscious of how we carry ourselves around the students, what we say and what we don't say, our body language, because we don't want to cause trauma to someone else and sabotage their learning journey. the more you delve into microaggressions and traumas of microaggressions, the more you realize the enormous responsibility we have for students who enter our institutions. And so many institutions have initiated this immersive faculty workshops and workshops for staff and administrators. It helps us reflect in writing and in dialogues about how to uproot implicit bias. And it's something that you may never be able to uproot, but it's something that you need to be thinking about it every day and to be really conscious of your thought process, thinking about thinking and how you interact with people around you, and how the power dynamic or that stratification paradigm is playing out, and how it is empower the person in front of you and may lead to transformative and debilitating change in their lives. So achieving cultural humility is really something that we will have to strive to do every single day of our lives, and understand that it really is an integral part of our work as administrators and as educators. So I'll stop here. This is the end of our presentation part of our workshop. And let's see, I think we have a chat. Shelley had to leave, but we still have 13 people in the room. So let's talk to each other. I will stop sharing so that we can see each other. But the questions that I have, again, along the same lines of what do you do in your institutions? And if you have any strategies that you have used to help us as faculty and as administrators interrupt microaggressions as we see it. Many of us see it in front of us, but as bystanders, we can intervene, but many of us do not know even how to intervene. So we just let it go untapped. How do you, if you have any ideas that could help the group here, please feel free to unmute yourself and talk to us. Talk to us about how you implement perhaps some of these strategies of self-determination, and how do you interrupt microaggressions, whether as it emerges in self or others. Brianna.
I think one of the things that SUNY Broome does really well is have different opportunities for students to learn about careers in the field that they're working in. Specifically, our criminal justice field, we host the criminal justice department in my office partner to host these expos every Tuesday, where we have different people from the fields, like police departments, the health department, Broome County Health Department, American Red Cross, come in and talk about educational opportunities. And it's obviously a you have to come if you want to learn more about it. But then just making students aware. Sometimes we do mock interviews so they can get used to what the actual interview process is like, and different things to kind of prepare them. A lot of my Perkins team were on here. We have different panels and discussions with professors on the campus, alumni that have gone into the field, so they're more aware of the different opportunities for them. So kind of making those self-aware. Sometimes you do got to nudge them a little bit, ask professors to make it extra credit or something to kind of increase attendance, because I feel like with COVID, especially, a lot of virtual things don't get attended regularly. So just trying to motivate students again.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we said, that's fabulous, Brianna, definitely. As we said earlier, also making sure that these panels and these speakers are representative of the special population is bringing the level of equity to the space, and making sure that the students see themselves in those role models. So I'm sure you take that into consideration as well.
For sure.
Yep. Thank you, Brianna. Anybody else? Anybody else? Do you have any ideas or strategies on relatedness? Do you do, I know you said, do you do networking events? When you meet with students, I know some of you are coaches, career coaches, and some of you work one-on-one with students. Are there specific strategies that you use? I know in our webinar, we really, past webinars, we emphasize the case management approach, where we really have, a case management program where you make sure you're following up with the students, making sure that all their non-educational needs are met, all those social determinants that we talked about are met, and when they are absent, you follow up with them. When their grades are suffering, you follow up with them and you see what kind of assistance can be provided, whether it's tutoring or any other service that can be helpful in mitigating the situation. But in your institutions, are there anything that you provide that would help the students address perception of competence or autonomy or relatedness?
I hate to keep jumping in because this is
Go
not,
ahead, Kim,
this
please.
is not my current position. However, I was a case manager in a program before I was here.
Yeah.
And yes, I mean, it is so, and many of the students in the population I was working with, their families were not supportive of education. And it was, this was like an extracurricular activity for them that they kind of had to justify. And that made it even more so important to continue as they would disappear, to reach out and get in touch with them. I know one student in particular, there were some issues that they flew under my radar in the program that led him to feel he couldn't safely be there. And he wasn't coming, he was avoiding my calls, but I finally tracked him down and had him in one-on-one just with me every day, just in my office until he was finished.
Yeah.
And he told me eventually, he said that he was going to kill himself, that I saved his life there. But as far as strategies, we had a problem with not having a representative staff. And one of the things that we did to address that was have many speakers and just add diversity with people and experts that we brought in. And that can be wonderful. And it can also lead to other opportunities and mentorships for the students.
Right. Absolutely, Kim. You demonstrate so well that this is really a labor of love. That really is, it's a labor of love because you really demonstrate that this is, it takes a lot of caring for the student, a lot of, going above the call of duty. And making sure that the students we often are the lifeline, right, for them, like you were, Kim, for that student. So it really is more than a job, and more than a full-time job. But the rewards that you get out of it is just enormous when you really help the students succeed. So if there are no more comments, I will end here. Thank you so much for your participation, your attendance, and I hope that this has been valuable and productive for you. And looking forward to seeing you again next webinar. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Tina.
Thanks, Kim.